Hey everybody, how's it going? Just wanted to jump on here real quick because in the month of May, starting in the month of May, I should say, I'm going to be trying something new. And I am going to go back and repost some of the more popular episodes from when I first launched the podcast. And so today I am relaunching episode 6 all the way back from when I first launched the podcast. And this episode is with the legend, Triathlon Taren. So I am really looking forward to bringing this episode to some of the new listeners here on the Do It For Yourself podcast, and I hope that you enjoy.
One really bad situation in I want to say I was about 26 or so, and I was out in the middle of nowhere and took a car for a joyride when I was well intoxicated. It was a remote fishing camp, so nobody was around. Knew I was only going to hurt myself, but I was young and stupid and did end up hurting myself, crashed the car into a ditch and had to walk about 17 kilometers home. And that was the first inkling of, you know what, I'm taking life too far. And I had that 17 kilometer walk to think about what I had turned my life into. And that was kind of the start of at least opening up my perspective and realizing, you know, maybe I should think about living a different way.
That is Triathlon Taren this week on the Do It For Yourself podcast. Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Ian, and this is my podcast. It's the Do It For Yourself podcast, and each week I interview someone who is doing it for themselves. This is often entrepreneurs, athletes, speakers, or anyone who is chasing a dream or going through a lifestyle transformation that they've always wanted to. This week, I have Triathlon Taren. But before we get into Taren, I'd like to handle a couple housekeeping things. If you are a subscriber to this podcast and you've listened to some previous episodes, you may see that there's a trend of individuals who are in the triathlon world in one way or another. This is probably by nature because I am into triathlon myself. And so I'm connected with a lot of amazing triathletes who have a great story that they love to tell. However, my goal is to interview others who are outside of the triathlon world as well. So if you are listening to this and you are doing something for yourself, or you know someone who is chasing a dream, building a business, speaking at events, please get in contact with me. I would love to get connected with you or someone that you know for this podcast. This week, as I said, my guest is Triathlon Taren. Now, Taren is a triathlete himself. He's had some very great race results. Just last season, he qualified for the 70.3 World Championships down at Austin 70.3. He completed a marathon swim, and he's had some amazing accomplishments as an athlete. But our interview is to actually explore the business that he is launching centered around Triathlon Taren. Triathlon Taren is a YouTube channel. He has multiple podcasts and a great following on Instagram. Now, Taren has not always had this business that he's been running. Taren started off as an investment advisor, and then he moved into a social media company where he was managing social media accounts for various businesses based in Winnipeg, Canada. Through doing this, Taren found his love for creating content online for fellow triathletes who are just getting into the sport, who are looking for some tips or maybe some tricks in order to tackle their first race or step up to a new distance. Taren has put out a lot of great content over the last few years, and he's a great follow on both Instagram and YouTube. Taren's got away with taking a great picture, his lighting's always on point, and the editing in his YouTube videos is fantastic. So without further ado, here is my interview with Triathlon Taren. If you could, just give me a brief introduction, a couple points on you, name and stuff, where you're from.
Okay, Taryn Gazelle, and most people would know me, and I would Google search a lot better if you check out Triathlon Taren. It's Taren. I had a history of going down the typical sort of business student path of getting into banking, getting a little bit further in banking after a couple promotions and job moves, starting an investment practice and becoming a certified financial planner and having a bunch of fancy letters behind my name. And this was in my late 20s and early 30s. I kind of just wasn't really fulfilled by it. I had no creative outlet. And in my early 30s, I wanted to start making videos. And it was at the time videos about my investment practice and talking about how smart of an investment advisor I thought I was. But just legally, I wasn't really allowed to. I was maybe allowed to get 3 or 4 videos approved every single year. And that wasn't enough for me. So I said to myself, I was like, well, you know what, screw this. I'm going to go start a YouTube channel about my hobby, triathlon. And at the time, I had to think about, when am I happiest? And it was during morning group bike rides. So I said, you know what, if I'm going to do anything, might as well do it about something that makes me extremely happy. And I made this YouTube channel about triathlon, and I started filming videos on my wife's iPhone and learning how to edit videos on iMovie, and gradually made a few more and learned that I really liked it. And eventually it got to the point that I was making videos during the weekday, and I would be calling my assistant at work, and I would have a video pop into my head on the way to work, and I go, oh yeah, Christine, can you just man the phones for the day? I gotta head home and take care of something. And I go home and I make a video about Speedos. And from that, it's kind of evolved into starting a social media company from what I learned about growing Triathlon Taren. And now trying to make Triathlon Taren, which just started out as this fun hobby, all that I do. I have one employee, all that she does. My wife is starting to get involved in the company and making it a really neat lifestyle business over something that is a hobby and a passion, and helping people out in the world change lives. Because I felt like when I was an investment advisor, I was helping rich people get richer and moving money from like one side of the computer screen to the other. And now I'm helping move people around the world do their first race or their second race, or be more confident in their 10th race or whatever it is. And that really means a lot to me. Like it sounds sappy, but probably 2 or 3 times a week I'll have an email or just a moment or comment in the YouTube videos where I get a little teary about how life has changed and how I'm helping people change their lives. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, and there was a lot there that I want to dive into. So I want to first start with, if you could take us back to the start. And I know up where you are, you call it university. Down here, we call it college. But you went to university, correct?
Yeah. I was. It's called a Bachelor of Commerce honors degree is what I got.
Okay, and while you were in university and even before university, as a kid, were you into athletics at all? Did you play any sports or anything like that?
I played made-up sports. So I was never a jock and never natural at anything that I took up. So in Canada, every kid plays hockey. I was okay at hockey. but not good enough to really do anything with it. The one sport that I was really good at was curling. So it's done on ice. It's actually, I think, one of the fastest growing Olympic sports, specifically in the U.S. I know it's growing really, really fast right there. And I was really competitive at that. At one point, we were one of the top junior teams in under 20 years old in the world, and then kept playing that in my 20s and got to be ranked about 15th in the world. And I pursued that basically to the point that I got to a decision where either I was going to dedicate my life to curling and being a professional curler, or basically be out of the sport. And I decided to be out of the sport because it wasn't, for one reason or another, it wasn't fun enough for me. It wasn't challenging physically. It was very repetitive. I was traveling a ton. I was spending all of my holidays in, like, we called it pick a town Canada, like just whatever small town was having a bonspiel. And to get to the next level, I would have had to basically quit my job and accept that I was going to be just a curler and live off of our winnings, which was very hard to do, and I didn't enjoy it enough to take that risk. So that would have been when I was probably, I think my last season was probably 4 years ago, and that would have been the sport that I was good at. But as far as like traditional sports, running, track and field, hockey, baseball, I was always able to get myself to be good enough by a lot of work and sheer determination, but I was never a natural athlete in really anything.
And now, no discount to your curling career, but you guys did do fairly well. I'm pretty sure I remember a little snippet from one of your vlogs where you were cleaning out the garage before you started to set up Triathlon Taren headquarters, and there was a nice photo of you that you found in there while you were doing that.
Yeah, I've actually still got those. I was for a few years invited to charity events that would be held in North America. I never ended up going overseas for them, but they were charity events that would raise money for all the ones that I went to work for hospitals. And the photos that I've got here in the garage still are from something called the House of Hearts in Duluth. And I would go there every year, and people would raise money for the right to play with celebrity skips. And I'm using air quotes around celebrity because it was funny. We'd go down and we'd sign autographs and just have a ton of fun and party with people. And they paid and raised money to be able to party with professional curlers, again, air quotes. And then I'd come home and nobody would care about anything with curling. And so we were a celebrity for a grand total of about 72 hours.
That's great, though. There's probably someone who's still floating around with a picture that has your autograph on it somewhere.
There's a lot, but if anyone knows curling at all, there's also probably a lot of really degenerate pictures from those weekends. Yeah, a little less glamorous sometimes.
So, speaking of these degenerate weekends, I'm assuming you mean degenerate from partying.
Yeah.
So, when you were in university, coming down towards the home stretch there, you went through a stint of some partying, correct?
Yeah, it was more than a stretch. Basically, since I was 17 years old up until the last few years, yeah, I was a really heavy partier. My family had always been like old hippies, and life kind of centered around getting together and having a blast. And then when you get into curling, same sort of thing. Every weekend, they're called bonspiels, but basically a tournament. You're partying every weekend with your teammates and your opponents. And then in university, I went to university a little bit later. I didn't start until I was 22. So by that time, I'd had 4 years of heavy partying under my belt, and I was a professional partier. So then I get into university, where all of a sudden there's conferences that you travel to, and those conferences are parties. I was I was right at the tippy top of about as hardcore partier as you could get. Never got into into too much that was dangerous. I put myself into one really bad situation in my, I want to say I was about 26 or so, and I was out in the middle of the nowhere and took a car for a joyride when I was well intoxicated. It was a remote fishing camp, so nobody was around. Knew I was only going to hurt myself, but I was young and stupid, and did end up hurting myself. Crashed the car into a ditch and had to walk about 17 kilometers home. And that was the first inkling of, you know what, I'm taking life too far. And I had that 17-kilometer walk to think about what I had turned my life into. And that was kind of the start of at least opening up my perspective and realizing, you know, maybe I should think about living a different way.
Yeah, those kind of situations really open up your eyes to what needs to be done sometimes, and other times, unfortunately, they don't. And it takes, you know, a couple of those situations. And my story is very similar. You know, I had two events, one of which where, you know, I ended up a great distance away from where I originally started, and same thing, had to walk back, you know, and as I was walking back, had that same opportunity to really think about what was going on and the path that I was going on. And, you know, at that point, it didn't look good, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's you're faced with, I mean, unless you're completely oblivious to what you're doing, when you've got a really low moment like that, nothing but time to think about it.
yeah.
It's hard not to think about how you're responsible for that.
Yeah. Unless you're living just completely in denial, which that's a whole nother that's a whole nother thing that we you know, we're not going to get into right now.
Yeah.
So towards now, fitness started to come in for you. Was it because of, I'm sorry, let me start that over. You got into fitness because of your weight. Was your weight something that you put on from the partying?
Yes and no. I came from a family that had never instilled a sense of fitness, activity level, health being part of what we did. We were like the typical unhealthy family that you come home at the end of the night and whatever tastes good is what you eat. And sometimes that means it's 3 cans of Coke at night and 1 for lunch. If you're hungry and you're out and about, of course, it's fast food because that's what tastes great. I had never been a really thin kid, and if you look at my YouTube videos now, like, you can still see that I'm a little bit pudgy and probably always will be at my most ripped. I still don't have abs down by my waistline. I always carry a little bit of weight and did as a kid, but at about 18 years old, when I stopped playing or stopped having gym, stopped being really active, started working, sitting at a desk, not going to a gym, eating fast food more, and partying on the weekend, which then just demotivated me to do anything but either party or sleep. It started coming on at about 18 years old, and it was probably until I was about 24 or 25, like a good 6 years, that I just steadily gained weight. And I believe I graduated high school at, I want to say, somewhere around 160 pounds. And I peaked at around 215 when I was, 24, 20, call it 24.
Okay. And so that peak, was that, where were you in university at that point?
That would have been my first year in university. I went to the gym and I got that 215 down to around 200 just by doing something. I would go to the gym about 3 days a week and got that 215 down to around 200. But I had no thought of being fit or losing weight, and I had no idea how to do it. I had some spares throughout the weekend. I was like, well, I might as well go to the gym. So that wasn't a quick transition. I was still very heavy in my first few years of university.
And then as you were coming towards the end of university, did your fitness or your desire to continue exercising and working out start to increase?
Well, I can tell you it was one single night that flipped the switch for me. I had just recently broken up with a girlfriend that I had been together with for just a year or so in my first couple of years of university. And how did it work? I just had like nervous energy, and that nervous energy, I didn't know what to do with it. And then I was out drinking. Oddly enough, drinking ended up leading to me wanting to be more fit. I was out with a friend, and this group of friends, they were all young guys, fit guys, dressed well, looked sharp, and really good with the words. And I thought I was kind of good with the words, and I thought I was funny. But for some reason, girls were paying all the attention to them and none to me. And there was something that just snapped in me. And I left the bar that night and I said, you know what, this is crap. This is stupid that I'm letting myself get to this point that people can't see past this layer of unfit and unhealthiness that I've put on myself. Like there's nothing about society or anything besides me doing it to myself. And the very next day I started going to the gym more intensely. I went every single day. Starting that day, I didn't really know how to eat healthy, but I knew that a muffin was probably better than Dunkaroos or licorice for a snack. So I just started making changes like that. And gradually, right in the middle of university, I went from that 200 down to about 170 pounds. And this wasn't an endurance 170 pounds. I did it through weightlifting and dieting and eating like a bodybuilder. So it was a pretty bulky 170 pounds, or at least a muscular 170 pounds. So it was a pretty big transformation, because I went from very, very doughy and puffy to pretty blocky and large. Well, not stocky, but like large in a ripped kind of way.
Okay. And so you already had some of these habits in place when you graduated from university. And after graduating from university, you went on to be an investment advisor. And did you feel like having some of these healthy habits already in place helped you keep that weight off as an investment advisor? Because I'm assuming you were probably spending quite a bit of time at a desk in front of a computer screen.
Yes and no. Like that switch that flipped that night when I left the bar, that has never changed. Never, not once, not even a little bit. I've never wanted to get back to a point where I had to worry about my weight. I've kept it off the entire time. I've since found some dieting methods and working out methods that I enjoy a lot better. But I went down to that 170 pounds, and then for a bunch of years it fluctuated from 170 to 180 or so, and I never let it get away from me, regardless of how busy I was. I became a morning person, and even when I was busy sitting at a desk, I would always be going to the gym beforehand. So right from that very night, I took control of my health, and it was just a matter of deciding that I wanted to be healthy, more than I wanted that extra hour of sleep, or more than I wanted that fast food. And that kept through no matter how busy I was, or no matter how much I was traveling. I was right from that day.
And so now you're out of university and you're working as an investment advisor. Tell me about those days, and how that was going, what that job was like.
You know what, that job is good for certain people who absolutely love the stock market. They will thrive in it. In my case, what I loved about it is that I was building my own business, and looking back on it, I can even think of when I was studying to get all my licenses to be an advisor, that I was thinking, you know what, this industry is a bit of a sham. But here I'm going to be the guy that's not a shyster. I'm going to be the honest one. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to be very honest. I'm going to tell people what's a sham and what isn't. And frankly, a lot of it's a sham. And what ended up happening is because I didn't have this passion for the industry, when I would go out and try to drum up business and get new clients, I knew everything. I mean, I knew everything about hundreds and hundreds of stocks and which mutual funds were doing well and which life insurance plans would do well and what tactics to use and how to structure your business tax efficiently. I mean, I knew all of it, but I just wasn't passionate about it. Like and it would come across. I would be very ho-hum. I had a hard time selling that it was something that people absolutely needed because I didn't buy that they absolutely needed it. So I did it for a little over 5 years. And that entire time, there were some really hard years because it's eat what you kill. There was 1 year in that 5 years that I think we call it a T4 up here. It's what you officially make and have to pay taxes on. And I think it was $8,000 1 year because I had a 1 year where I came off of being supported by the company that I worked from, and then I went to totally on my own and I hadn't built up enough clients. But I kept going because I liked building the business. I didn't realize until probably the last couple of years now, looking back on it, that I didn't actually like the industry. I didn't like it enough to wake up every day and talk to 12 people a day and be so passionate about it that they get excited about what I was talking about. So it was a struggle. I mean, I enjoyed the building aspect of it and the human resources and interacting with people and learning about the stock market. But it was tough. It just didn't feel like me. I didn't feel excited to wear a suit. I didn't feel at home. I didn't feel like walking around the office. It was a place that I needed to be. There was always something that was just a little bit off about it. And I know now why, but at the time I was just blind to it. I thought that people it's what you did. Like everyone's got to work somewhere. Everyone's got to wear a suit. I got these fancy business degrees in behind my name and all these fancy certifications. Like, this is what people do. Life's hard for everyone. And of course I'm having a hard time. So I didn't recognize how ill-suited I was to it until the last couple of years when I've been on the outside and looked back. So it was an interesting bunch of years. I won't say it was a hard bunch of years because a lot of people have it a lot rougher. But it was challenging. It built a lot of character. It was some good lessons.
So take me through what you started to feel towards the end of your time as an investment advisor. What was that light bulb moment that you were like, you know what, this isn't for me, and I got to figure something else out that is?
Well, I officially left and sold my investment practice. Got to do some math here. It would have been 2 years ago. What's the date today? It's almost 2 years ago exactly. It was 2 years ago exactly. Yesterday was the day that I signed it away and said I'm out. And in the year prior to that, I knew that I wasn't going to do it for the rest of my life. I had decided that I had to get out somehow. And I started actually, I've never actually talked about this. So I started studying for the GMAT test, the MBA school entrance exam. And I studied for it throughout the spring and the summer of 2015. And I thought that was going to be an out. Okay, I got to go do something different. I'm in business school. I got all these suits. I'm going to go to MBA school now. And what I thought that I needed to do, so I wrote the test, did pretty well. But I knew that because I wasn't a rock star as an investment advisor, I needed to pad my stats in all the entrance essays. So I had the YouTube channel at that time, and I started making video after video after video after video. And I'm like, you know what? One of these has to work. One of these has got to do well. And I was really just doing it to make my application look stronger to, I was shooting for the moon. I was going for Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Wharton, and I knew that I had to look fancier than I was. So I started making all these videos thinking that maybe if I had a video that really explodes and does well, that'll catch people's attention. It'll show that I'm passionate about something in life. And what ended up happening is, as I'm going through the process of applying to these business schools and cranking out video after video after video, I realized that I was enjoying the videos more than the concept of going to business school. So I started the YouTube channel in January. I think the first video finally went up in April of 2015, the same year that I was applying to business schools. By December of 2015, I had created somewhere around 60 or 70 videos, and all of the applications to the business schools came back denied. Not good enough, didn't make it. And I wasn't upset one bit, because I was looking at it going, oh my God, if I went to business school, I'd have to stop making videos. And how I finally ended up getting out to being an investment advisor was, luckily enough, a friend of mine who I actually grew up curling with, coincidentally, he was noticing what I was doing with the YouTube channel and seeing that I was getting some pretty good views. He was a partner in a large tech publisher that owned 4 large websites that had completely ignored social media. And he wanted somebody to come in and help him run his social media division. And he offered me a position to do that. And I'm going, I don't know what I should do. I came home, I talked to my wife, Kim. I said, should I do this? I don't know. Like, I've got all these letters in behind my name and all these suits in the closet. Like, I'm a business guy. I'm not a social media guy. And she said, what do you do at nights and on the weekends? You play on social media. You learn about social media. You make videos for social media. You have an opportunity right now to get paid doing what you are doing for free. And that was the turning point to finally getting out of that job as an investment advisor and getting into social media full time.
So Kim was actually like the one who pushed you almost out of the nest and said, like, let's go, like it's time.
Oh, she'd had enough of me complaining about being an investment advisor for years. Yeah, she was looking for a reason for me to get out, and it was a stable company. It was a good position, and she knew that I wasn't fulfilled in my life, and I needed something to change. So it was a good opportunity to do it, and as risky as it seemed, she saw that it was risky to stay and just waste away in a career that I wasn't enjoying.
Absolutely. And where on this timeline did triathlon come into your life?
The first race that I ever did was a few years before that. It was as I was an investment advisor.
Okay, so you were doing some triathlons as an investment advisor, and then you continued doing triathlons, and obviously now you're doing them every season and taking this very seriously.
Yeah. I started doing them as an investment advisor, and have I'd say I've ramped it up and started taking it very seriously around 4 or 5 years ago. So I would have still been an investment advisor, but the triathlon stuff was a huge gateway drug to seeing that I felt alive when I wasn't at work, that I felt alive when I was challenging myself and challenging my body and doing things that I didn't think I could do. And that then led to me starting the triathlon channel. So triathlon was the gateway, the very first little tip towards seeing that there's more to life than making a bunch of money and buying a fancy portfolio of stocks.
So now you are working for this social media company, and you actually had the opportunity to purchase the division that you were managing at that time. So this situation here What was going through your head during that time, and what did it look like? Were you scared? Were you nervous? Were you unsure about doing something? Taking another step, just like you were when you were leaving the investment job.
You've done your homework. I am impressed here, buddy. um, you know what? So January 2016 was when I joined that tech publishing company, and basically from day one, the friend of mine who was the owner and myself, we did not work very well together. Very quickly, I built up the division, hired a bunch of employees, started doing a bunch of work, and through it all, it was just really difficult. The way that he wanted me to go in a direction was not a way that I wanted to go, and but he still needed somebody to do the work. And it was only about 9 months that I said, you know what, we don't work very well together. Why don't we just part ways and we change this from a boss and employee to client and service oriented business. So we created an agreement that I would buy out all of the equipment that I had built. I would take responsibility for all of the employees that I would hire. He would become my first client, and by that time, I would say that is a much bigger risk than leaving the investment advisor job, because all of a sudden I've got debt, I've got bills, I've got employees, I've got overhead, I've got a lease that I've got to pay for. But I think I'd taken enough risks of, it was everything from leaving the investment advisor job to doing that first triathlon to doing a marathon swim a few years earlier. I had got myself into a mindset that, like, what is the worst that's going to happen if I start this business and I leave this company and it doesn't work out? Like, so what? I go and do the next thing. And I by that time, which is about 18 months ago now, I stopped worrying about every single decision having to be the right thing for the next 30 years and what the risk is going to be. I just looked at what was going to make me happy and what actually had kind of a path to a future that I could see being fulfilled in, and where I was, it just wasn't happening. So there wasn't even a question. Like, to be perfectly honest, the decision to buy that division, it came up in a matter of 18 hours. He said one thing to me that was like, maybe we should change the structure. I don't really know what that means. And the next day I came in with an offer, and the finances were all worked. Like, it was literally the next day that I changed, and Kim was totally on board. Just, yeah, it was not even a question by that time.
So there's two things that I want to touch on there. The first thing is, again, Kim being that support system for you in this situation, as much as she was for leaving the investment advisor job, which having a support system in triathlon and in life in general is huge.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you an old really successful businessman who his family now owns our local NHL hockey franchise. He's that successful, but I ended up meeting him while I was in university. I would have been about mid-20s. He was 80-some, and I ended up getting sat next to him at a dinner. And I didn't know who he was. I had no idea that he was a gazillionaire many times over. Just a really nice old man. And as I got up to leave that dinner, he grabbed my arm and he said, "Son, if you want to be successful, marry the right woman." And it wasn't really something that was in my head, that I was like looking around with crosshairs for who the right woman is. But looking back on it, like, I totally get it. Without the support of Kim, with everything, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. And like, she's the glue that allows this to happen. When I'm busy at work, she's out. She's often out shoveling snow because there's too many days in a row that I am making videos and don't have time to shovel snow. And it's not even a question of it. I don't even have to ask. She just does it. And without her, I wouldn't be able to do any of this.
And the other thing I wanted to touch on was the fact that, when you had that boss employee situation going on, you said that you didn't work well together. And my question to you would be, do you think it was a personality thing, or do you think that you don't like to play by the rules, and you don't like being told what to do? So really, in reality, maybe Taren wouldn't make a good employee anywhere.
Oh yeah, I'm a terrible employee. Yeah. Oh, I look back to every single job. Yeah, I'm an awful employee. I'm a really good worker. I'm a really I mean this sounds arrogant. I'm really invested in the things that I'm invested in, but somebody could walk up to me and say, "Hey, you know what? It's probably not very smart to jump off that bridge." And I'd be, "Well, hey, screw you! I'll jump off this bridge better than anyone." I don't deal well with it. So it was a personality problem. Recognizing that it's largely me. I've never done well with bosses.
Yeah, interesting, because I think everyone who has that entrepreneurial side doesn't do well with bosses, and so it was interesting to hear you say that prior to purchasing that division, you weren't getting along with the boss, but it maybe wasn't because you guys didn't agree or see eye to eye. It was just the fact that you don't do well working for a boss.
Let alone that, but I don't do well working. It's to the point that I recognize that I also don't do well with a lot of clients of mine. I have a hard time with what, like, I have since this is going to sound funny, but since starting that social media company, I have fired more clients than I have employees. Because I'm into a point now where I value my autonomy so much that I would rather give up having a giant social media agency with tons of clients for the ability to choose what I do day to day and who I work with day to day.
So let's get into that. You purchased this division, and you moved everything out of the office that you were in to another office, which ironically was directly across the street. And is that when you launched Post? Was that division when you purchased it? Is that when you created Post?
Yeah, that was Post.
And so that just came from, the social media. It's called a Post, and that's, it's a social media company. Is that where that idea came from?
Yeah, it's a social media post. So basically just keep posting. And then we spelled it a funny way, basically just to be able to get a name that we could incorporate and not have competition, and we could get a domain and things like that. So it's spelled P05T, which is, I think it's called Leet Speak, which is the language of the internet, where you spell thing like LOL and great. It's like GR8. So it's how you spell post in Leet Speak.
Okay. And so at this time, you're into triathlon, you're racing, you have Post, and you're still creating the YouTube videos. Was the YouTube video Triathlon Taren, which is not what it started as, was that just like a side hustle for you?
Yeah, pretty much. It was how I kept myself honest as a manager of video editors and as a social media strategist. So there were two aspects to Post. One was we would provide social media strategy to companies. Two was we would also create some of their content, because there was a gap in the market that I recognized that there were companies that would go and charge a company. There were video production companies that would charge a company $10,000 or $15,000 for this big, fancy, sexy video, and then they would give that company the video and say, here's your video, here, it's done. And the company would go, oh, well, maybe I'll put it on Facebook. And because there was no promotion or strategy around it, they had this $10,000 video that got 40 views because they had no idea how to work Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or anything. And they were getting charged more than they needed to be for those videos, because on social media you've got like Chewbacca Mom that with Facebook Live gets 40 million hits in a matter of a week. It's not about the quality. So we were going to make content for the companies at a price point that justified being on social media. So it was less expensive videos, lower production, more authentic, more real. And I had to hire a bunch of creative people, video producers, video editors and shooters and graphic designers. And I didn't know how to do any of it. So I kept doing Triathlon Taren, because it was this really nice testing ground to do a lot of the social media strategy that I wanted to implement with a client, but I couldn't go to a client and say, hey, I heard this thing on a podcast. Do you mind if I test it on you? I don't know if it works or not, and I don't really know how to do it yet, but I'm going to try it out on you. Instead, I had Triathlon Taren where I could go and do whatever I wanted, and that was really nice. And then two, I kept editing the videos. So as I would see videos that they would shoot or concepts for a client that we thought, hey, you know what, this would be a really neat way to shoot and produce this video, before those video editors would actually go and do it, I would stay late or come in on the weekend and do it myself so that I could learn how to do it and learn their lingo. And it was this little thing off to the side that just made me a better manager and a better social media strategist. And that's why it kept going throughout all that.
So while you're doing all this, you're still doing triathlon. And did you feel like triathlon was keeping you balanced from some of these clients who, at the beginning, I'm sure you weren't able to pick and choose who you were working with, so to speak. If you had a client that was coming on and they were willing to pay you, if you're just getting started, you're gonna take that paycheck. So do you think that having the triathlon and that consistent training, all the endorphins and everything that comes along with triathlon, do you feel like that kept you balanced while you were getting post up and running?
Not really, no. I tend not to be balanced by burning off energy. In my case, energy it spirals in me. Like energy it ramps up in me. So thinking back to when I would party, it's not like I would party and get tired. I would party and party and party and party basically until I collapsed because I was out of energy. I'm still the same right now, that after doing a workout, I get wired after. So I would actually say that the triathlon was probably making it worse, because I would get ramped up and then I would go into work, and sure, I would be a little bit more I don't really know the word to use here, but I was not centered. What did center me was meditation and journaling and having a focus of, okay, here's the thing that I need to do today. Because I would go and do my workout early in the morning, and it would be such high energy that it would get me wired, and then I would bike commute to work. So I'm still riding that high, and then I would get in and have a couple cups of coffee, and it's still only 8:30 in the morning, and I'd go on this tear of doing a bunch of work first thing in the morning, and I had no direction for where I wanted to go in the day. And the day would come, and it would just be a boxing match of the next email, the next fire I had to put out, the next client I had to call. What did end up kind of grounding me and centering me was taking up meditation and journaling every single morning and having an intention for what I wanted to accomplish in the day.
Yeah, so just two things on that. I personally just started meditating as well, and I got the Headspace app, and I just started doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How far into it are you?
I'm like, so I picked one of the little like I guess, things you can go through that has 30 days. And
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I remember that.
I'm halfway through it right now. And I'll tell you what, no matter when I do it, if I do it first thing in the morning, the other day I actually, you could set it to whatever you want. You could do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and so on. So I just did the 10-minute one, and I took 10 minutes at the beginning of my lunch break at work and just did 10 minutes of meditation, and then, ate my lunch and got back to work. And I mean, the meditation thing is phenomenal.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a reason that people have been doing it for thousands of years. Like, yeah, it is such a huge game changer. And that combined with journaling, I find is like, it's one of the most clarifying things that you could possibly do.
Yeah, I saw your post the other day on Instagram. It was your watch and what time it was in the morning, which I don't know if you've heard or follow him, but that did kind of look like a little ode to Jocko Willink.
It sure was a nod to Jocko. Yeah.
There you go. So, but I saw that you write down specific things that you need to accomplish for that day, and then you have your workout and everything else, and you accomplish more in the morning than some people. You accomplish more before some people are even up and at work.
Try to. Yeah, try to. Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't want to go see that Instagram post and just see a picture of my watch, yeah, what I do is I get up at 4:30 every morning, and I'm out the door by usually 5:45 or 6 off to my workout. And in that hour or hour and 15 minutes or however long it is, the two biggest things that I need to accomplish are a 10-minute meditation and journaling. And the biggest part of the journaling that I find really helpful is writing down 3 important things to do that day. And it's not 3 important things like make sure you pick up dog food or reply to this email. It's 3 things that lead to you getting one step closer to a big goal. So those 3 things kind of come from typically maybe once a month or once a quarter, like where do I want to go? What's the important things that I want to either start or wrap up or finish or grow? And those 3 things are tiny little steps towards those big goals. And sometimes it's as simple as like, what was yesterday? I've got my journal still right next to me. Yesterday was send emails to potential podcast interviewees at the Triathlon Business International Conference. So I want to meet a few people. I came up with a list of about 6 people that I wanted to interview. And instead of leaving it as something that like, I'll put it off, I'm kind of scared to do it, I'll wait until I'm at the conference, or I don't have any of their contact information, and just said, you know what, I've got to email these 6 people, or I've got to email just the general contact line. Whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to reach out to them. So that's a step in the direction of doing something that's a needle mover. And I've got 3 of those every single day, and it doesn't feel like I've got to create this 10-year roadmap that changes the world. And like the phrase is boiling the ocean. Don't worry about boiling the ocean. Just worry about like one tiny little step every single day, or 3 of them, and they all add up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the thing that I've learned most recently is that having that morning routine is very, very important. And I've seen it all over the place, from, the general who's giving the speech at the video on Facebook that was from, I think, Goalcast, and, 15 other different of those viral type pages that's made its rounds, and reading and listening things from Tim Ferriss. And it just seems like having that morning routine really sets you up to have a great day and really start checking off some of these boxes for things that you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I explained it, actually. I went back and I was asked to speak to a an existing business students conference. And it was largely, I forget the theme. It was like, I don't know, think outside the box. So of course they have like a whole bunch of suit wearing people, business people that are like doing some unique business. And then I show up in my jeans and a workout shirt. and I commuted by bike, and it was winter, so people were like, "Do you need to use the bathroom?" As I walked into the faculty, I was like, "No, no, I'm speaking here." And the message that I sent to them was that they shouldn't be just doing things because they're conditioned to do it. Like we're all just conditioned to um, we're all conditioned to kind of just go through the motions of the day to day and take care of the next email and go on the next committee. And what I said to them was that it's actually like every single day you are going into a war, and it's a battle for your time. And everyone else in the world wants to steal your time and assign you tasks and send you emails and ask of you. Your job and your battle is to make sure that you have enough time for yourself first, and that you are heading down the path that you want to be on. And the only way that you can do that is by, before you get into that battle and turning on your computer or your phone or getting into that first meeting of the day, you know what you want to accomplish that day. And those things that you want to accomplish in that day take precedent over everyone else. And that's the only way that you can win that battle, because otherwise you're going to turn into somebody and have responsibilities that you don't want because everyone else is assigning them to you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And speaking of going into battle, and making these changes, you have post, you have clients, you have an office, you have employees. Things seem to be going very well, and I get on YouTube one day and there's a video of you, and you are announcing the fact that you are now shutting down the post office.
Yeah, I sure did.
And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, I've been watching this guy for a while, and he commutes on his bike to work in the morning. He's got a fridge full of food that he stocks on the weekend so that he's not tempted to eat crap while he's at the office. He's got these employees. They're doing great things. It looks like a great space. And now all of a sudden, he's deciding to shut this down.
Why?
Right. I'm like, what the heck? What? Like, I'm thinking to myself, like, what is he thinking? So tell me, what were you thinking?
Well, it was really clear to me that by this time, Triathlon Taren had really taken off, and I was way more fulfilled that by the emails and the comments that I get about people saying that they did their first race or were motivated to take triathlon and fitness seriously because of watching my channel. I mean, we've got emails from people that said, the one that really hits home to me right now that's very recent is somebody named Steve. He went through weight loss surgery, and he was on heart medication, and he wasn't able to walk less than a kilometer, about half a mile, to walk his kids to school without being short of breath. And he had weight loss surgery, and it was in the hospital that he decided, I'm going to do a triathlon. And in the hospital, he found the YouTube channel, our Triathlon Taren YouTube channel. And since then, he's lost, I think it's 110 kilograms. And he's done a number of triathlons. He's gone under an hour 30 in a sprint. His goal was to go an hour 30 in this season, and he did it in his first race. And he's so into triathlon, and he feels motivated to take charge of his own life in more ways than just being in fitness. And that means more to me than getting 10 and 20,000 views on some video that we made for a company here locally. And I mean, sure, it's nice to work with local companies and help them out, but it was just more of looking at, what do I value more? And the more that I grow this social media agency, the less time that I have for Triathlon Taren. And the thing that isn't talked about a lot with really, I want to say business school in general, but just society in general, is that we're always conditioned to want more and want a bigger company and more employees and more clients and more sales and more profits and more revenue and more office space. But with that more also comes this treadmill of, okay, well, if I have another client, I've got to get another employee. And then if I have that other employee, I've probably got to get one more client to make sure that my bottom line is okay. And then if I have that other client, well, maybe I need like a half an employee. And what ends up happening is you grow this organization that isn't really what you wanted, because there's dozens, if not hundreds, of other employees that have a stake in it and a say in it. And there's dozens, if not hundreds, of other clients that have a say in what they're demanding of you. And sure, as an entrepreneur, you can kind of shape what you want, but you're at the mercy of this organism that grows on its own. And going back to me not liking to be told what to do, I didn't like that I was pursuing basically growing some organism that I didn't really control or have much of a say in. And really what I was accomplishing is just getting more sales for other companies and making, wealthy business owners more wealthy. Whereas I had this Triathlon Taren little project off to the side that was helping change people's lives. And call it selfish or narcissistic or egotistic or whatever. I call it, all my life I've wanted to feel important to someone and something. And that did it. Like, oh my God, like that, how many zeros does that account for in a bank account when I know that I've been a part of somebody losing more than 200 pounds? Like, I'll give up the business accolades any day if I can have people that I'm a part of their lives and touch them like that. That's no question. So I shut down Post, and while I shut down the office, we still have Post. We work with a handful of clients, basically just friends, family, referral only, small projects here and there. I don't advertise that we take on clients because we still need to pay the bills for the meantime. But that's why I shut it down. And I believe that that's a real fault in specifically business school, that all we're taught is you have to be bigger, badder, and better. And if you're not growing, you're dying. Like, well, actually, that's just one of the stupidest things that you could possibly say, because how about you can just maintain? And like, if you're just maintaining, you're not dying. Why don't you maintain in a way that you're happy? So I'm pursuing happiness and impact and fun, and forgetting about being a quote unquote successful businessman.
Yeah, but to tell you the truth, even at the same time, you may say that you're maintaining, but you're still growing as well. I mean, you are, maybe you're not growing Post anymore, but you're growing a YouTube channel, and you're growing your audience, and you're growing an Instagram following, and so yes, you may be maintaining a little bit, but I would even beg to differ that you are still growing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm growing something different, but I'm not growing something in the typical sense of growing a corporate venture. I'm growing a lifestyle business that at its peak, maybe it's my wife, Mel, the creative videographer that we've got, myself, maybe another person, some people to help with editing the podcast here and there. But I'm looking at growing my impact, not necessarily growing a big corporate venture.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what I was kind of referencing to there, was you're growing your impact and your reach, and how you're impacting, other people. So you're still growing, but, you may not be growing a business in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I won't play the martyr totally, and we are trying to grow Triathlon Taren into a business and actually make money off of it, just not in the typical sense of more. Like, you know what? I don't anticipate it being this multi-million-dollar organization that I end up on the cover of magazines for, and like top 500 fastest growing lists. I want to grow a business to the point of being comfortable and I mean, essentially that kind of just gets to the point of, I say comfortable is, can you write a check to the Mayo Clinic and take care of your family without question if anything happens? I mean, you don't have to be a gazillionaire to do that. It
Right.
it needs to be, successful, but I don't have to sacrifice decades of happiness and try to grow this typical corporate venture to be able to do that. I need to grow a small lifestyle business that makes 3 or 4 people really fulfilled, and I can only do that if I'm helping thousands of people around the world.
So when you made the decision to close down the post office, and kind of only work exclusively with referrals and everything else, do you feel like you were more prepared for that decision because of all of these decisions in the past, um, that you had made to make changes?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the way that I explain, say, doing your first triathlon is, it is kind of like that first time when you're a kid that you'd go to the pool and you would jump off the high dive, and you would be absolutely terrified to do it the first time. And that first time was the hardest time, and all of a sudden it's pretty fun. And then the second time you're like, you know what, maybe I'll do it again. You hesitate a little less. And then by the end of that first trip to the pool, you're running back up the ladder to get off that high dive, and you're running from the back of the high dive, and you're trying to go as far as you can, and you're not even thinking about how scared you were the first time. That's kind of what it's like right now. That I like I'm in a point right now that we have clients coming and going, month to month. We have Triathlon Taren, which isn't self-sustaining right now, but I am like the opposite of scared about it. I'm pumped about every single day because I know that I made really scary decisions and went through scary days for the past 4 years, and you know what, things still worked out okay, and they keep trending upward, and they keep going in the right direction, and I'm a little bit happier every week, and maybe not every week, but just in general, I'm happier, and it seems to be going the right way. So those scary decisions are like, it just kind of comes with it. We're wired to be a little bit scared every now and again, but if you take those scary decisions, they get easier as you do more of them.
And I would venture to even say that triathlon has also helped you with that, because there's there's no one race is exactly the same. So even though you're going into this, you know that you have to do the swim, the bike, and the run. Who knows what the conditions for the water could look like? Who knows what the bike course could look like? Who knows, you could lose a bottle of nutrition on the bike, and that's going to, that could potentially completely mess up the rest of your day. So, you have put yourself into these situations where you're almost conditioned to accommodate anything that's going to come up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know what? I'll say the races of triathlon, I don't, I don't enjoy them as much as you would think. I actually get more of a challenge and more, I think, fulfillment out of the training, because the training is where I really push myself and see what I'm made of. And race day is kind of like just executing and doing a half Ironman. That's more like a low hum. It's less intense,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just by that time the hard work has already been done. But I mean, I did something last summer, like the marathon swim. It was 37 kilometers in open water in a river that you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. That's more something that's like, we all dipped into that water in the morning, and we didn't know if we were going to finish. That's more something that's like, yeah, legitimately scary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember watching everything leading up to that, and then the video from that day, and I still can't wrap my mind around that.
It's like anyone could do it. It's like a long walk. Seriously, once you go through the training of building the hyper mileage in the pool, and all of a sudden you can do a 15K swim in the pool over the course of 4 or 5 hours, you've kind of conditioned your body just to chug a chug at a low hum of essentially the physical exertion of walking for days.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So anyone could do it. You could do it this year. You should do one.
Well, I will be heading to USA Nationals for the third time, and ultimately my long-term goal is to go to Worlds at the Olympic distance. So as much as I would like to do something challenging like that, that's my current goal out there on the horizon.
Oh, that's a good one. They put on good shows at those ITU Worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Nationals event is, that's remarkable in and of itself. So I can only imagine what the stage at Worlds looks like.
Yeah. I haven't been, but I hear amazing things from everyone that's gone. So that's a good goal. But then you're going to do that, and then you're going to be like, well, maybe I think Kona.
Yeah. Either that or who knows? Maybe a marathon swim.
Yeah, I don't recommend them. I do it just to share the suffering.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit with my last question. Maybe not, because I feel like this may be something that you get inboxed quite often. But you have someone who approaches you, and it may not be for a triathlon. It may be they just want to chase this dream for themselves. And, as we were talking before we started recording here, not in a selfish way, but, everyone is saying go right and they want to go left, and they are unsure what to do. And they reach out to you and say, Taren, here's what I want to do. My mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, whoever it is, they're all telling me I need to go right. I need to stay on this straightened path, but I really want to go left. What do I do?
You know what? That's a tough one. I'd love to give you a really philosophical answer about it. I mean, it depends on everyone's situation. I've always made really risky decisions that I think a lot of people would say are risky, but I've at least thought through things enough and had stability, knowing that I could land on my feet. I never left a job with nothing to go to. I never left. I didn't start Post with no clients. I started it with a first client. I think that the best place to start is to. I mean, this could be maybe just a tiny soundbite. The best place to start is to just start. Start something. And I'll go back to what I said to those students that I spoke to a couple months ago. If people put every single decision in the sense of absolutely all or none, and I have to make a risky decision because people make risky decisions and successful people take risks, and I'm going to leave my job and it's all going to work out. Those decisions are so big and so intimidating that I think people talk themselves out of making them. But when I go back to like my journaling, my morning journaling, you don't have to have an all or nothing kind of approach to it. If you want to go left, maybe just like take a little baby step left and see if you like that. And then if you like it, go a little bit more and a little bit more. And instead of thinking along the lines of it is all or nothing and I'm going to burn this sucker down if it doesn't work, those are going to be decisions that could potentially ruin people's lives. Or they're so big that nobody's ever going to make them. So I'm much more of a proponent of taking little tiny steps towards your left, whatever your left is, as you're going. And maybe it's a side hustle, maybe it's a hobby, maybe it'll always be a side hustle or a hobby. But if you're taking little tiny bite-sized steps, by the time you get to the point of being in situations where you've got Ian that's saying, what was that point like to you? You've taken so many steps towards that full on left hand turn that it's like just another step. And it isn't so big that you've got to weigh the pros and cons of it for days, if not years. So I'm much more a believer in living every single day a little bit towards the left.
So maybe just bearing left instead of hard left right from the start.
Yeah. You know what? Unless you've got something that you are 100% passionate about, always have something on the side that you're following your curiosity about. So, like, unless you know 100% that what you're doing in life is going to fulfill you and it's going to do it for 30 or 40 years, you have to have some sort of something on the side that is just satisfying your curiosity. We're meant to learn as people, and we're meant to take tiny little risks. And just saying, well, I'm busy, I don't have time to learn how to code, or I don't have time to learn how to make a video, or I don't have time to grow an Instagram following or start a podcast. I don't have time for that. That's an excuse. Everyone's got time to do a little bit. Like that. I think that's a scared excuse to even start. And if you're scared to even start and try something once, start one podcast or make one Instagram post, you're not going to have the guts to make that big decision down the road anyway.
Absolutely.
So you got to make the little decisions as it goes too.
Yeah, I can dig that. So what can we expect from Triathlon Taren in 2018?
Well, we're actually going to release a podcast that I did with NTK, my wife, No Triathlon Kim, this Sunday, talking about my goals for 2018. The biggest thing is by the end of the year, I want to get the company to a point that Triathlon Taren is self-sustaining, and it's all we do. We've only got a certain amount of runway that we can continue to do this at a point where it doesn't sustain itself, and I'm basically stealing a little bit of time from clients, or I'm stealing a little bit of time from Triathlon Taren to work with social media clients. I want to get it to a point that it's self-sustaining. And what that means is we're focusing on continuing not just one, but we've launched a second podcast on January 1st. We are doing bigger video projects. So next week, for example, we're going to the Triathlon Business International Conference, and then after that, we are doing several days of video work with the Purple Patch Triathlon team with Matt Dixon and some of his pros. So there's going to be more than just Triathlon Taren and a daily vlog and what I did in my training that day. It's going to be more partnerships with companies, more coverage of new gear, more podcasts. One of the biggest things is more free resources. I found that over the course of 2017 that yes, I did daily vlogs, which every single one of them had little nuggets of information along the way. But because there was so much content out there, people couldn't even sift through my own channel who were devoted followers to be able to piece together, what do I do with strength training? So we came up with here is how you strength train. Here's a routine. Here is 3 months, every single week. Here's what you do. And offering those resources to take everything that I'm saying day to day in the YouTube videos and the podcast and actually put it into something that is tangible that people can apply and print it out or download it or whatever it ends up being, that here is how you do it. There's going to be a lot more of that. We're trying to come out with one of those every single month. And I found that I think that while the videos and the podcasts are motivating and fun to consume, when the rubber hits the road, I need to be better at giving people the tactical, all right, I've got you fired up about wanting to do it. Here's how you do it. Take this piece of paper and go do it. So there's going to be more of that.
Awesome. That sounds like it's going to really pick up some ground. And I think, yes, the motivational things are great, but I think giving the motivation and then the practical way to go about doing it, I think that people are going to respond really, really well to that, and I'm excited to follow along with that as well.
Yeah, yeah, I am too. Like all of this, it's a fun test. Like I think everyone needs to remember that who's thinking about going left needs to remember that like I'm not a guy that's built a tech company or a social media following already, and I know what I'm doing. I'm just doing a bunch of stuff that I think might work, and I have a blast like throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks, and just throw. If I throw 10 things against the wall and like, all right, well, there's 6 that stuck there. I'll do more of those 6, and those 4 will just write off. So I have a blast doing that and seeing what comes, because I don't know what's going to happen a year from now, or like what things are going to look like a year from now. But I'm just trying to glean from what we've learned over the last year, what we think are going to work, and it's like every month we've got a surprise.
Well, Taren, this has been absolutely amazing. I have really, really enjoyed this chat, and you have been awesome. We went, well, I won't say well over, but we did go over the time that I wanted to take from you. So I want to say thank you very much for the time that you've given, and the amazing chat that we've had. Please tell people where they can find you, where they can get a hold of you.
Well, before I say that, thanks for having me, and a special thanks for letting me go. Being on the other side of the mic is different for me. You might not think it, but it's a lot easier to be in video because I can retake things, and being here just kind of talking openly is been really nice, and yeah, thanks for taking the time to have me on, because it's time out of your schedule too, and especially taking the time to prepare with these killer questions. So thanks a lot, Ian. Where people can find me, just Triathlon Taren, Taren, just about everywhere. There's a podcast that's Triathlon Taren. There's a YouTube channel, Triathlon Taren, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all Triathlon Taren. The only thing that isn't Triathlon Taren is the new podcast that we launched that's really short, just under 10 minutes every single weekday, a triathlon question answered at the Triathlon Trainee Ask podcast. That's the only thing that isn't Triathlon Taren.
Awesome. Well, Taren, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and I look forward to seeing what's to come in 2018 from the whole Triathlon Taren team, and I'm also very excited to see a little bit more of the Triathlon Taren headquarters, and secretly I'm really excited to see the new Triathlon Taren ride.
Yeah, I actually just approved the final decals today, and oh yeah, it's gonna look slick. Thanks to Ventum and Alto and Bicycle Makeover for that.
Yeah.
Oh, and Shimano.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Taren,
Yeah,
I've
thanks,
taken
Ian.
enough of your time. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can review this again in the future.
Thank you.
Right. And there you have it. That is it. That is my interview with Triathlon Taren. I want to just take another minute to say thank you to Taren for jumping on a Skype call with me. I know he had just finished up a workout. He was probably pretty tired, but we went over our time just a little bit to explore Taren's story a little bit more. And I thank him for giving me that time and being so open about his journey with starting Triathlon Taren and morphing this now into a business that he has taken on full time. I also want to say thank you to you guys for downloading and listening to this episode and any of the other episodes that you've checked out, whether it be on Podbean, Stitcher Radio, or the Apple Podcasts app. If you could please leave a review, 1 star or 5 stars, it's going to help me continue to make a show that you enjoy, or help me make this show better so that you will enjoy the future episodes even more. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and I look forward to talking to you again next week.